Hi, and welcome to TCCF. My name is Tapio from the TCCF team, so those of you coming to the summer camp will meet me there. Okay, to start this section on climate science, I'm going to give you the simplest explanation I can about climate change. Now, actual climate science is a lot more complicated, but I believe that as teachers and educators, we don't need to know it all, we just need to know the big picture and the basics. So, in science, we study the natural world. What kinds of things exist, like trees and air and water and the sun, and we try to figure out how they work. So in the history of humanity, we've learned where rain comes from and how trees use sunlight and air to grow, and how inside the sun atoms themselves are joined together and that makes the sun shine. We've learned how to use things as tools. For example, we use oil and coal by burning them. That's what makes your car run and where a lot of our electricity comes from. We've also learned that we're living on this planet, this ball of rock and water that's circling the sun in space. The planet is also surrounded by this really thin layer of air. So we call this planet Earth, and at some point we've started learning how Earth itself works. And here's a few important points. First of all, it's really cold in space. In outer space, it's minus 270 Celsius. Pretty cold. Whereas the sun is really hot. The sun is so hot because of the nuclear fusion. And the sun is radiating its energy out into space. Some of this energy hits the Earth. That's why it's pretty warm down here. It's the sunlight. So, we are on average at 14 degrees Celsius. Well, actually, because of global warming, it's already up to 15 degrees. Now, all warm things radiate their energy outwards. Let me explain. You know how things glow when they're really hot? Actually, things glow or radiate all the time, your eyes just don't always see it. So for example, my hand here and the whole Earth are radiating a type of invisible radiation called infrared radiation. So again, anything that has any heat is radiating its energy outwards as infrared radiation and losing its energy. Using a special camera, we can see the infrared radiation that's coming from my hand. You can also see how I can stop the heat from escaping. The Earth is basically a huge warm rock in space. So it's radiating its energy out. But the sun is shining, so it's giving us some new energy, and these two balance each other out. So that's why the Earth's temperature is pretty much stable. So now we're ready to understand what climate change is. Some gases are so-called greenhouse gases. This means that they let the sunlight come from the sun and warm up the Earth, but they don't really let the infrared radiation from the Earth pass through the atmosphere and escape into space. This means that the Earth will build up more and more energy, which means that it will get warmer. These greenhouse gases come from many different sources, but one important source is all those fossil fuels that we're burning. So that is the basic explanation for climate change. Really, you'd have to think about how ice and clouds reflect the sunlight and how photosynthesis affects this whole thing and how different layers of the atmosphere interact and so on and so on. But that is a job for a climate scientist. Climate scientists create these things called climate models, which try to take all these things into account. And one thing that comes from these models is called scenarios. Scenarios are basically different paths that the climate can take, and which one it takes depends on us and how quickly and efficiently we act. So, what kinds of challenges will our students face in their futures? Well, as temperatures rise, some areas might be more difficult to farm. Forest fires like the one in Australia in 2020 might become more frequent. And as sea levels rise from the melting ice, Some people might be forced to leave their homes, and these all create all kinds of societal challenges as well. But climate science is also about solutions. One thing you can do in your classroom is think about different types of solutions. You can think about societal solutions, like how do we restrict the amount of greenhouse gases we emit into the atmosphere? How exactly do we agree to do those things? And you can think about technological solutions, even such as how do we take greenhouse gases out from the atmosphere? In this section, we're going to use some great materials by University of Helsinki climate scientists. We're going to learn some basic concepts, we're going to take some new perspectives, and we're also going to look at the data. Thank you.